A single mother saved a millionaire buried alive in the woods. But what he whispered made them both cry. The rain came down in sheets as Emily Harding pulled her fraying coat tighter around her shoulders, one hand gripping the small fingers of her son, Jonah, who trudged beside her in muddy boots 2 sizes too big. The woods were dark, almost unwelcoming, but this shortcut through the back trail saved them nearly 20 minutes of walking to the diner where she worked the night shift. Every minute counted when you were raising a child alone, scraping by on tips, and hoping the sitter didn't charge extra if you were late. She didn't expect this night, like so many others, to change her life, but fate often hides behind the mundane. Jonah suddenly stopped, tugging at her arm. "Mom, do you hear that?" Emily paused. At first, it was only the patter of rain and rustling leaves. But then, barely audible, came a weak, muffled sound. A groan. A whisper. Her heart thumped. "Stay here," she said quickly, crouching near a patch of disturbed earth off the trail, half covered with branches and wet leaves. The ground looked wrong. Like it had been recently dug. She pushed aside the debris, hands trembling. Then, her breath caught. A pale hand. "Dear God," she whispered, adrenaline surging. She clawed at the soil, ignoring the cold and the pain as her nails bent and broke. Jonah knelt beside her, helping without hesitation. They dug, dirt flying, until a face appeared. Mud-covered, eyes fluttering. He was alive. A man, maybe in his 50s. Expensively dressed, though his clothes were torn and bloodied. His lips moved faintly. "Help, me." Emily scrambled for her phone, no signal. "I'm getting you out," she told him firmly. "Stay with me. Please." With strength she didn't know she had, she dragged him out inch by inch until he gasped for air, fully freed. He coughed, sobbed, and then, in a voice barely more than breath, he whispered something that made her freeze. "Thank you, you look just like her." She blinked. "Like who?" "My daughter, my Ellie. She died, 2 years ago. I thought I was going to die seeing no one but the faces of the men who buried me." Emily wrapped her coat around him, heart pounding. "You're safe now." They waited in the cold for what felt like hours before help arrived. The ambulance lights lit up the forest like a beacon from heaven. Emily told the paramedics everything, refusing to leave the man's side until he was safely in the vehicle. His name, they soon learned, was Henry Lowell, a reclusive millionaire, thought to have vanished 3 days earlier. The police believed it was a targeted attack. Business rivals, maybe. Henry had enemies. But what mattered most was that he had survived, and Emily had saved him. The story made headlines across the country. Single mother rescues missing tycoon buried alive. Reporters swarmed her, but Emily avoided them. She didn't want the spotlight. She wanted to keep her life quiet, focused on Jonah, on surviving. But Henry didn't forget. 3 weeks after his rescue, a black car pulled up in front of Emily's apartment building. Henry stepped out, now healthy, cane in hand, eyes searching until they found her. "I had to see you," he said, his voice steadier now. "To thank you properly." She offered him coffee from her tiny kitchen. It wasn't much, but it was what she had. He sat in the small chair beside her son, watching as Jonah drew superheroes with crayons on old receipts. There was something tender in his expression, something broken, and healing. "I've had a lot of time to think," Henry said quietly. "When you're buried in the ground, waiting to die, every second becomes a lifetime." Emily listened, heart heavy. "I was a hard man," he confessed. "All business. All control. I pushed everyone away. Even Ellie. She begged me to be there for her. And I wasn't. She died in a hospital bed alone because I was in a boardroom. I never forgave myself." He paused, then looked into Emily's eyes. "Then you came. You didn't know who I was. You had no reason to help. But you did. I couldn't leave someone to die, she said simply. You reminded me of her, he whispered. Same fire. Same kindness. And your boy, he reminded me of what I missed. He reached into his coat and placed a small envelope on the table. Emily stared, confused. I want to help you, he said. This isn't charity. This is redemption. Inside was a check. Emily's breath caught. 6 zeros. Enough to pay off debt. Buy a home. Send Jonah to college. She shook her head. I didn't do it for money. I know, Henry said, eyes misting. That's why you deserve it. They sat in silence for a long moment. Then Jonah piped up, do you want to see my drawing? Henry nodded. I'd love that. Over the next months, a friendship blossomed. Henry visited often, sometimes with groceries, sometimes just to talk. He took Jonah to the museum, taught him chess. But more than that, he became part of their family. He set up a trust for Jonah's education. Helped Emily start her own small cafe, Ellie's Light, she called it, in honor of both his daughter and the light that brought them all together. People came from far and wide, not just for the food, but for the story. A place built on hope, kindness, and second chances. One evening, as the sun set behind the cafe windows, Henry sat with Emily on the back porch, sipping tea. I thought I had everything, he said. Money. Power. Influence. But I had nothing that mattered. Until the day you saved me. Emily smiled softly. You saved me, too, in a way. He turned to her, eyes glistening. That day in the woods, when I whispered that you looked like her, it wasn't just your face. It was the way you saw me. The way you didn't look away. No one had done that for years. They both cried then. Not from pain, but from release. From healing. Sometimes, the world takes everything from you. But sometimes, in the darkest places, it gives something back. A second chance. A new beginning. Because when compassion meets despair, something beautiful happens. Lives change. Hearts open. And strangers become family. And all it takes, is one act of kindness. One person willing to stop and say, you matter. I see you. Emily never dreamed she'd be the one to change a life like Henry's. But maybe that's the miracle of being human, we all carry that power. And sometimes, it's the ones with the least, who give the most. And in giving, they find everything.